IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful sunny Budapest. I hope everybody is having a healthy and good week so far. This is a members chat class. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch. And in this class, we will be covering an academic reading section, talking about how to master the answers and make sure that you get them correctly. Of course, if you're a general IELTS student, this class is still very, very useful to improve your reading skills, to build vocabulary, so make sure to stay tuned. Also, if you'd like to become a member of our channel, just click that join button beside the subscribe button. And if you want all of our fantastic materials to truly improve your band scores for your next exam, for academic students, check us out at aehelp.com. And for general IELTS students, check us out at gieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots and lots of videos, practice exams, interactive courses with strategies to help you get those higher band scores. I'll quickly show you those right now. This is our academic website here at aehelp.com with the blue background. You can click that big red button to get the IELTS Premium Package. And then, of course, for general IELTS, it's a similar layout, but with a green background, and you can click that big red button to join now to get the Premium Package there. So make sure to check those out for lots and lots of help. If you have questions, don't be shy. Send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com, and I will gladly answer those as quickly as I can get to them, usually within 24 hours' time. Now, for all of our viewers, we do have a listening class coming up in 90 minutes where everybody will be able to join the chat. That will be looking at listening parts 1 and 2 with some explanation and practice. So make sure to check us out there. And then later in the week, we'll have some writing, some more listening, and some speaking coming up as well. So make sure to stay tuned for all of those classes. All right, everyone, so let's get into a little bit of reading for today. So here we have today's reading passage. I think quite an interesting topic. And this is a reading class, so make sure to read, students. Don't just listen to my voice, but make sure to read, follow my reading as well. Really pay attention to the content, the information. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Jainil. Hi, Carolina, Parmar, Abhishek. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. So here we have the title. Now, students, this is passage 3. Okay. And in the academic IELTS, there's basically 2 ways that they make the reading passages more and more difficult with each passage. One way that they make it more difficult is they increase the difficulty of the questions, the types of questions. And another way that they increase the difficulty in these reading passages as you go along is by increasing the difficulty of the topic. Okay? And one simple way to increase the difficulty of the topic is to move from physical topics, like talking about a specific bridge or a specific building or some part of nature, like a type of animal or a type of tree, and moving away from those kinds of visible, physical kind of topics to these non-physical topics. So concepts, ideas that are what's called intangible, untouchable. Okay, so you have to visually conceptualize them. Hi, Amelia. Welcome to our group of members. Make sure, Amelia, to send me an email later today so I can hook you up with those exclusive videos. Okay. All right. Janil, I see that you're asking me the question of how can I save time in the reading? One way to save time in the reading, of course, because when you're reading, you're also comprehending, so you're also understanding. One way to save time is exactly what I'm going to explain right now. So When you are getting ready for your IELTS exam and you're reading on different topics, so you're maybe doing some practice exams, or maybe you're also reading some books, some workbooks, some novels, try to make sure that you're not just focusing on topics which are physical topics, but also invest some of your time to read about non-physical topics. So sociology, psychology, philosophy, law, these kinds of non-physical topics, okay? Because there's a very good chance that one of the 3 passages on your IELTS exam will be this kind of abstract or what's called intangible topic. And that's definitely much more challenging to understand and to comprehend and answer questions on in another language. Okay, is everybody clear on that? So pick up like a Psychology Today magazine. And when I mean pick up, I mean search for it online. Obviously, most magazines are digital these days, okay? So it's no different here with our 10th exam, reading passage 3. We're into this topic of Martin Luther's 95 thesis, okay? So obviously not a physical topic here, okay? So I'm just going to give you a quick note on this because I think a lot of students know this but don't actively really recognize it or pay attention to it, okay? So especially in the academic IELTS, okay? So for academic IELTS students, keep in mind that it is very likely one of your 3 reading passages will be an intangible or abstract topic like art, sociology, psychology, law, philosophy. So there's lots of them, okay? All right. Therefore, be sure to read such kinds of articles. For example, Psychology Today online, so that you are mentally prepared for this. Okay, it's really important. Okay, so don't just read about physical topics. Read about abstract topics. All right, cool. It looks like everybody's picking up on that. Okay, so that point aside, when you read this title, what comes to mind? Okay, maybe nothing. Maybe you have no idea who Martin Luther is. In that case, you should do nothing more than think a little bit about what a 95 thesis could be. Okay, if you do know who Martin Luther is, great. That will definitely give you an advantage. If you don't know who Martin Luther is, then obviously your next step is to go to the questions and hopefully get some more information there. Okay. Okay. Carolina says, in my last test, there was a table to fill out, and it was very confusing for me. Yeah, Carolina, we have included, I believe, some table-type questions in our most recent exams as well. Yeah, that's kind of a newer type of question. There's a couple new types of questions. Abhishek says, Martin Luther King Jr. was an American president. Not quite, Abhishek, but you are in the right kind of sphere of ideas. He was a very influential person in the United States, absolutely. So you're not far off, okay? So anybody else have an idea of who Martin Luther might have been? If not, it's fine. We'll just go to the questions. I don't want to explain it to you because you don't have that kind of advantage in the real exam, okay? All right, if you don't know who Martin Luther is, then let's take the second part of the title. Okay, so don't give up. Don't just say, oh, I have no idea, this is a confusing title, I'm just going to start reading. Instead, think about this 95 thesis. What do you think that might mean? So this is how I would critically think about this title. Okay, I don't know who Martin Luther is, so I need to think of what a 95 thesis could be. Okay, different ways to spell that, it's the same. So what could that be? So Abhishek says he died due to being assassinated. Good, Abhishek. Yeah, it's he was killed. Absolutely. All right. What could that thesis be? So what is a thesis? You should know that because you need to be able to write a good thesis for task 2 writing. Okay. So what is a thesis? Tell me that. Because that will definitely give you an idea about this essay, okay, or about this passage. So what is a thesis? Just let's keep it that simple. So Preeti says maybe something about 95 theories or quotes. Bekjan says maybe a political argument. Very good. So maybe a political argument. Yes, a thesis is an argument, right? Okay, sure. So maybe some kind of an argument. Natalie says some kind of a statement. Okay, so keep going with your critical thinking. I really want you to evolve your critical thinking, members, because that is one of the big tricks to improving your band scores, especially for those high band scores like 8 or 9 on the IELTS exam. So what kind of theories or what kind of beliefs or arguments do you think this famous American person was making? What would you guess if I said, okay, you don't know who Martin Luther is, but you have to guess. You have to kind of try to tell me, based on your understanding of the world, politics, the United States history, what kind of a famous person who we remember in history today, what kind of person is this? What kind of beliefs or theories would they want to spread or influence into the American society? What do you think, Bekjan, they're arguing for politically? What is the most common kinds of political agendas of these influential people that we actually remember? Okay, so Bekjan says to change the American government rules. Sure, but take it one step further. In what way? What way do you think they want to change, or this person would want to change? So Natalie says laws, constitutions. Very good, Preeti. Okay, so Preeti says, how about arguments for human equality? Okay. Right, that is arguably one of the most common kinds of arguments or thesis or agendas that memorable historical figures that we hold as heroes or as icons, idols, this is kind of their push, right? In different kinds of ways. So even if you don't know who Martin Luther is, okay, if you understand the concept of thesis, you might come up with ideas like argument with human equality, human rights, treating people fairly, okay? Jainil, very good, stopping racism, stopping prejudice, right? So not just racism, but prejudice. Prejudice is not just racism, but prejudice includes, for example, sexism as well, so male-female differentiations or inequalities. Sure. Okay, so if you can get to that, you're going to be in a much better situation to read and understand the passage and the questions and to get more answers correct. Okay, let's now take a look at the questions because that is your next step. So we go into the questions and we go, all right, let's take a look at these. Hopefully we get a few more hints or ideas about the passage by reviewing the questions real quick before we read. So reading passage 3 has 6 paragraphs A to G. Which paragraph contains the following information? Very typical kind of question in the IELTS exam. You will see this type of question maybe once, but there's a good chance that you might see this type of question twice. Okay, it's a very popular type of question in the IELTS exam. Okay, so we review this. The source of indulgences. Okay, if you know what the word indulgence means, great. If you don't, that could be tricky. The current number of Protestant adherents. The effect Luther's action had on his own place in the church. The moral basis for Luther's worry about the system of indulgences. Okay, so this might not be, now I'm realizing this might not be Martin Luther King from American history, but somebody else in the church's history. Now, that's interesting, okay? So it's more about the church here. All right, and then here we have a summary completion. Okay, there's another very famous Martin Luther in history from the Lutheran Church. Okay, so the origin of the Protestant Reformation. So here I'm realizing it must be something about the church. So though he ultimately split the church into 2 factions, this was not his goal. In fact, his goal was to make the church. His success on this score is not clear, but the information stands today as one of the most times in 2,000 years of Christian history. So this is a different Martin Luther from a long time ago. Luther took issue with what were called basically a way that people could trade money for forgiveness from the church. So different Luther that we're talking about here, but we're still talking about the same kind of thesis. So justice and equality for humans. These took many forms, receiving a prayer, going to a certain location, or carrying out particular something. Interestingly, since the actions of Christ rendered the treasury something, the church could give out as many of these indulgences as they wanted, for a fee, of course. Luther worried that those people who purchased indulgences would not achieve a something, and they would not successfully gain entrance to the afterlife. He did not want to start a fight with the church. Rather, he wanted to care for his fellow Christians. Okay, so this is something about religion and the way religion works. In this case, Christian religion. All right. So let's go back to the top. And now let's start reading. So now we have a better idea of what we're reading about. We're reading about Martin Luther and his 95 thesis, his rules, his ideas for making the church a more fair system. Did everybody get that from these questions? Okay, so was everybody able to get this information? This is what you should get ideally from reading the title and the question. So this is about a man who argued against the unfair system in the church through a 95-point thesis. So did everybody get this much information by looking at the title and looking at the questions? Okay, hopefully you did. If you weren't able to pick up this much information from reading the title and the questions, then you really need to work more on your basic English skills like vocabulary, grammar, and so on. Okay, so that much you should have picked up. All right, I'm just being very honest here. Okay, so what level of comprehension you need. All right. Okay, so let's read and then we'll go through the passage and the answers together. Okay, so again, this is reading, so make sure to read with me. Practice your reading. Even if you didn't get all this information or a lot of it was unclear, then that's fine. By the way, before we begin the reading, just a quick question. Anybody know the definition of indulgence? Okay. Does anybody know what this word means? Indulgence. When you're practicing at home, I would definitely recommend translating that word or looking for the definition before you begin reading. You saw that word come up a few times in the... Yeah. So Preeti says to partake. It's kind of an interesting word. Okay. To be passionately absorbed in something. That's how I would define it. I'll give you an example sentence here. So, the man indulged in a 4-liter bucket of chocolate ice cream without considering his weak heart. Okay, so sometimes it's best to learn these kinds of words with examples, and this is where, if it's unclear, you'd want to look for examples to make the word clear, okay? Because some words don't translate or define that easily. Indulgence is one of these. So the man indulged in a 4-liter bucket of chocolate ice cream without considering his weak heart, okay? So this means that here's a man sitting with a big bucket of chocolate ice cream and just they're just going for that flavor. They're so excited about eating it and eating it without thinking about their health, without thinking about tomorrow, without thinking about their heart condition. Does that make sense? So I'll give you another example. The children indulged in a dangerous game of jumping over the campfire without considering the risks of injury. Okay, so this is another example. So indulgence can be positive, but indulgence can also be negative. Okay, so think about that. All right, so that's understanding the word indulgence, or to indulge, a little bit more clearly. Okay, let's read. So here we go. Okay, everybody's ready to go? Let's do this. The Roman Catholic faith had been around for approximately 1,500 years and had held spiritual power over much of Europe's people for more than 1,000, when it was rocked by a cataclysmic string of events which would cut the church in two. The first of these events was inaugurated by the German theologian and preacher Martin Luther, when he made public his deep doubts about the Catholic Church of the time. Luther's goal was not to destroy the church, but to make it better. Whether he was successful in this regard is unclear, but what is known is that Luther started what came to be known as the Protestant Reformation, and it is the most impactful period in the history of Christianity. Okay, good. So far, we've just read the introduction. What did we learn from the introduction? Let me make that disappear for just a second. When you're practicing at home, members, you should always stop, especially with these challenging passages, and ask yourself, okay, what did I understand here? What is this paragraph about? So what is this paragraph about? What is the introduction about? In a simple way, what is this introduction about? So how would you answer that? If I read this and you had this question, by the way, list of headings, this is exactly what you're doing here. So what is this paragraph about? What is it about? In your own words. Be concise, so don't write sentences, but simply in one sentence. Okay, it's about Martin Luther's contribution in the Christian religion to split it into two. Okay, so okay, good. That works. All right. Why? So why is this paragraph introducing this idea? It's in the paragraph, so these are your what, why, hows. So why did the paragraph introduce this idea? Okay, why talk about this? Why mention it? When you start to understand the paragraphs and then the passage in this way, you're going to be much more of an active reader. You'll have a much higher level of comprehension, and you'll do much better on the questions. And this isn't just necessarily English, okay? This is active reading skills. So why is the paragraph introducing this idea? Why does it talk about Martin Luther's actions in Christianity splitting the church into two? Okay. Abhishek says because there's injustice in the church to make religion better. Yeah. Okay. Because it is a okay, and to make it better. All right. How did this happen? Okay, so yeah, for justice, very good, Jainil. Abhishek, very good. Injustice in the church, I think those are all synonymous with this, to make it better because of the injustice. And how does he do it? So how does Martin Luther start this avalanche of events? It's in the paragraph. Hi, Secure. So how does he do it? What happens? What steps does he take to do this? Okay. It's in there. It's in the title. Okay. He made public his deep doubts about the Catholic Church of the time. So he expressed himself about the doubts through this 95 thesis, right? Okay, and here's the why. It's an impactful period in the history of Christianity, okay, known as the Protestant Reformation, okay? Okay, so that's what you want to do. Always check your understanding and visualize it. So here we go. Let's keep reading, okay? We're going to do a bit more fluency work here, so read with me, okay? So the core of the problem Luther had with the Catholic Church had to do with what were known as indulgences, which were a way to reduce the amount of punishment a person had to undergo for various bad actions or sins they committed during their life. The person receiving an indulgence had to perform an action to receive the indulgence. For example, they may have to recite a certain prayer, visit a particular place, or perform certain good works. Indulgences did not come from nowhere. Rather, they came from the treasury of merits, a kind of bank of all of the good actions and deeds and that Christian saints undertook through the church's history. When counting the actions of Christ, this treasury or bank was infinite. In the early centuries of the church, indulgences were generally given and received only in accordance with certain condition. But by Luther's time, the church had suffered moral decay to the point that indulgences were being commonly sold for money. Okay, so in this paragraph, what are we talking about? Okay, so this is paragraph B. What is it about? Okay, so always check your coherence and your comprehension. Don't just keep reading if you have no idea what's going on. Natalie, yeah, absolutely. It's about indulgences. So Natalie says it's about indulgences. And in this context, what is an indulgence? So Preeti says, yeah, crimes had to be paid by doing certain good deeds. Good deeds, Preeti. And good deeds here would be indulgences. Okay. Why is the paragraph talking about this? So, why is it talking about that? So why does the paragraph introduce this idea? Why did the author decide that, hey, this is a good place to mention this? So what's the logic there? Why tell the reader, why tell us about this concept of the church and the indulgences are good deeds that balance bad deeds or sins? Sins are bad deeds according to the Bible, so doing bad in the world. Right? Okay, so why does the paragraph introduce this idea? Carolina says to reduce the amount of punishment by paying money. Moral decay happening in the church. Very good, Preeti. Yeah. So because the church started to abuse this system by selling indulgences. Right? Okay. All right, good. So let's keep going. So again, you don't have to understand everything in the paragraph, but you have to understand the main points. Okay? Yeah, Natalie, very good. So Natalie says the church started selling these indulgences. All right, let's keep going. Interestingly, Luther's concern with the indulgences was not necessarily a moral one. Luther did not disagree with the notion of a treasury of merits, nor with the papal ability to grant indulgences. Luther's issue fundamentally was theological. That is, he worried about what was happening to people's souls who were buying indulgences. The ability to merely purchase such a thing removed the need for proper belief and proper faith. Salvation, the saving of one's soul through the afterlife, could not be given through such a transaction. And Luther worried that people would not be saved if they relied upon indulgences instead of faith. His interest was not revolution, but the care he had for his community of Christians. Okay, so here I would ask again, what is this paragraph about? And your answer should be Martin Luther's reason for disagreeing with this system of indulgences. Why did he disagree? Because he worried about people's souls, so the way people would be saved in the afterlife. Okay? All right, let's keep going. D. Okay, so this is what you want to build up to. You want to build up to comfortable, fluent reading where you have 70% understanding of the key ideas in each paragraph. Luther's 95 theses were not necessarily a polemic a direct and passionate attack against the church. Instead, they were more like tentative options, and he avoided directly criticizing the Pope or papal policy. Interestingly, the story of Luther posting the theses on the church door may be apocryphal, widely believed, but likely untrue. While he is said to have nailed his work to the door of the local church, in reality, he took his work, written in Latin and not in German, to the local archbishop. Luther did not write the theses for the consumption of the population at large. Though he is interpreted today as a religious revolutionary, this is simply not the case. He wanted to make the church better, and he wanted to ensure souls would be saved. Nevertheless, his work was translated into the local vernacular German and posted to the church door on 31st October 1517. Though it is highly unlikely this was done by Luther himself, since he was more interested in an academic debate rather than a religious revolution. Okay, what is this about? This is about Luther's 95 theses and what the reality is compared to what the famous stories are around this work, that it was an academic debate. Okay, why does the author write about this? The author writes about this because people believe that Luther was a revolutionary and he wrote his argument and then put it on a church door, but in fact this did not happen. He was an academic. He wrote the work in Latin, which was later translated into German, and he gave it to the archbishop and not to the general public. Okay. Yeah, Secure now says Luther's theses was interested in academic debates. Okay. Preeti says the theses and how it was passed across to the church. Very good, Preeti. I really like that nice, concise definition or summary of this paragraph. Okay, I hope everybody's keeping a mental structure and sequence of this information, because that's also what you should be doing at this point, is keeping in mind basically introduction, paragraph B, C, D, and now coming up to E, okay? All right, let's keep going. While Luther may not have been interested in a religious revolution, that is what he got. 4 years after the publishing, Luther was excommunicated or ejected from the church. Luther had wanted so badly to reform the church to make it better, but this proved impossible. Instead, Luther led a protest movement against the Roman Catholic Church, which aimed to reform, make better Christian belief and practice. This protest and reform movement came to be known as the Protestant Reformation. And the particular type of Christianity that Luther advocated for came to be known as Lutheranism. Okay, all right. So what is this paragraph about? It's about the movement that was started by Luther, the church eventually starting to split into two, and Luther being kicked out of the church for this, and the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. Okay. Let's keep going. Yeah, very good, Justwinder. So it's Luther's protest. So it's Luther's movement here against the Roman Catholic Church and the beginning of Lutheranism. Yeah, absolutely, Natalie. Okay. All right, here we go with F. Keep reading. For over 1,000 years, the Catholic Church was the universal church it claimed to be, at least among Christians. Martin Luther changed everything. By pointing out the moral decay of the church, he unwittingly created a new church that he hoped would refocus believers on what he felt really mattered, faith in Christ. Today, Protestants make up approximately 37% of the worldwide Christian community and count almost 1 billion believers among their ranks. Whether or not Luther himself nailed the 95 Theses to the church door it is clear that his writing changed Christianity and the course of humanity forever. Okay, what is this paragraph about? It's about the success of this reform movement. Why? Because today we have almost 1 billion people who follow this religious faith. Okay. Puiti says it's about how the church broke into two. Absolutely. Okay, and that seems to be our last paragraph. So I think we have a typo here with A to G. It's A to F. Okay. Yeah, 6 paragraphs, A to F, not A to G. Okay. So now we want to answer this. So again, I won't see that on the IELTS, but I have actually seen typos on official IELTS exams as well. They're rare, but they do happen. So 6 paragraphs. Which paragraph contains the following information? Now, when you do the right type of active reading, critical reading, especially when you're practicing this at home, really work hard to answer these questions without necessarily having to look through the whole passage. Okay? All right, let's do this together. So write the correct letter in boxes 27 to 30. First one, 27, the source of indulgences. So the source of indulgences, it means where they come from. Where they come from. Which paragraph is that coming from? Okay. So Janelle says B, Bekjan says B, Just Winder says B. Everybody seems to agree that it's B. Okay, so you say B, and I think you should be confident in that. You shouldn't have to check. But again, if you're like, okay, I'm 99% sure, and I want to be 100% sure, if you must take that extra second, then you can go back and check that. Okay, known as indulgences. Okay, yeah, so that looks good. Okay, so I stay with B, and B is correct. Okay, good. All right. So number 28, the current number of Protestant adherents. So the current number of Protestant believers, which paragraph was that? Okay, so Bekjan says this was E. Natalie says F. Janelle says E. Puiti says F. I think it was the last one, wasn't it? I think it was F. Didn't it say there's over 1 billion people, 37%? Okay, E or F, it was definitely in the end. So let's take a look. I thought I read it right at the very end. Okay. So today, Protestants make up approximately 37% of worldwide Christian community and count for almost 1 billion believers. So this word today, that's the currently, right? Okay, so it's going to be F. It's the last paragraph, F, right? Okay, even if you have a little mental lapse and you're like F or E, just take a quick look. So at least you know pretty much where it is, all right? Okay. So here we go. So B and F. The effect Luther's actions had on his own place in the church. Okay. So the outcome or the effect. Notice how you can't skim or scan for these. You really do have to comprehend the paragraphs. And this is why I was doing that active reading with you. So the effect Luther's actions had on his own place in the church. What was that? So Puiti says it's D. Bekjan says, I think it was in the middle somewhere. So maybe C or D. I think, Preeti, you have a pretty good mental log there. Janil agrees. Yeah, so Preeti says he was ejected, he was kicked out. That's what we're talking about here. Or the special word that's used in the church is excommunicated, right? Okay, just a second. I'm not sure what happened here. You get a little shot of my baby girl here, but my camera is still going. Just give me a second. I'm going to try to bring us back here. All right. A system crash. Yeah, so if you're not sure, if you're like, yeah, it's C or D, but I remember that he was ejected or excommunicated, then at least you know what you're looking for. Okay? So it's easy and it's quick to check. So you can start with C. If you think it's maybe C, then start with C. Don't go to D. Okay? So interestingly, Luther's concern with indulgence was not a moral one. Oh yeah, I remember. This is about his problem about people's souls not being saved. So it's probably D. Is this where he is excommunicated or kicked out? Maybe not. Okay. So we're looking for this word specifically, right? And it's nice because it's in brackets. So Preeti, you did a good job here. You said, hey, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I don't necessarily remember the paragraph, but I'm looking for where it says ejected or kicked out. Okay. And here we see the word excommunicated or ejected. Okay. So the correct answer is E. So this is how you solve these questions. You solve these questions by knowing what you're looking for. There's absolutely no way to skim or scan for these questions, students, so keep that in mind. Okay? All right. Okay, number 30. The moral basis for Luther's worry about the system of indulgences. Okay? Now, this is why this strategy is really effective that I was just showing you, because even though we didn't know where this answer was, because we thought we knew and we knew what we were looking for, we found this answer very quickly. And I can see a lot of you picked up on that. C. Yeah, we just saw that, right? We just had that reminder. Okay, cool. So I showed you something actually really important here of how this strategy is effective. So it might take you a little bit more time to figure this one out because you have to search for that word ejected or excommunicated. But by doing that, do it attentively and actively and recognize that you might find the next answer after. Does that kind of make sense? So how while you're going through these steps and you've done active reading, even though one answer might take you 30, 40 seconds, by paying close attention, it's possible that the next one will only take you 5 seconds because you've reviewed that piece of information. So stay calm, stay active and attentive because you're also looking at answers for other questions. Okay? All right, so there we are very confident. And while we were answering those, we were probably also looking at some answers to these questions. So let's go through these. Okay, let's go through these carefully. All right. The origins of the Protestant Reformation. So though he ultimately split the church into two factions, this was not his goal. In fact, his goal was to make the church something. Okay? What do you think is the right answer here? So though he ultimately split it into two, this was not his goal. In fact, his goal was to make the church what? Without having to search for this. Beckjohn says to make it better. Yeah, and we see that come up several times, right? Better. Okay, now I do believe that here we have our choices. So do we have a better? Yes, we do. It's E. right? So in this case, you don't put the word better into the answer sheet, but you put E into the answer sheet. However, the strategy that you're using here is don't look at the answers. This is a kind of multiple choice. Don't look at the answers first. Think about the answer first. Does that make sense, students? So think about the answer first, then look at the options. There's a much better chance that you're going to get the correct answer that way. Okay, because there's always one or two kind of tricky options that look like they might be correct. And with this kind of question, that's where students often lose their mark, is they're looking at the choices and they're trying to just kind of fit the answer into the space. But the IELTS people always include like 2 or 3 answers that are very close but wrong, and it's easy for the students to pick that one if they're just looking. So you want to look first, think about it, answer it, and then match. It lowers your error rate, your mistake rate. Okay, cool. Everybody got that? All right. So his success on this score is not clear, but the Reformation stands today as one of the most something times in 2,000 years of Christian history. What word do you think goes in here for 32? What would you put in there? So his success on this score is not clear, but the Reformation stands today as one of the most something times in 2,000 years of Christian history. What word would you put in there without seeing the options? One of the most recent times? I don't think recent times in 2000, one of the stands as one of the most recent times. I don't think that makes... Okay, Beckjan says maybe historic. Janil says S something. Yeah, S something is the word that comes to my mind. Natalie says valuable. Yeah. So Beckjan, historic. Natalie, valuable. I would go with significant. Catholic Church split into 2. It's one of the most significant. Valuable, historic, or important. Okay. Decisive, maybe. Significant, decisive, important. Those are the words that come to my mind. Let's see if something like that matches. Okay, so which one of these do you think is closest to valuable, historic, significant? Which one from these choices? Okay, which one? Which one would you choose as the best fit, as the closest synonym or the closest match? Carolina, what do you think? Beckjan says I. Impactful. Puiti says, yeah, I think it's impactful. Yeah, having impact means having importance or having value. Impact is like a punch, a hit, right? Boom, it's an impact. Okay, so not successful, impactful. Okay, impactful, Abhishek, is the closer match to significant. All right, so yeah, I would say impactful or I. Okay. Okay, members, here are the remaining questions here. So use this kind of strategy that I just showed you to answer questions 33 to 36. And then here's some true, false, not given. I've given you a lot of examples of true, false, not given. So apply the strategy for true, false, not given to these questions here, okay? And then send me your answers by email, and I will send you the answer key so you can check and see if it's correct, okay? So send me your answers, I'll send you the answer key, and then you can check them out. For all of our viewers, you can try that too. You can send your answers to my email. My email is adrian@aehelp.com, so send them there. And then that's kind of your homework. So that's your challenge, okay? All right, everyone. So that's it for the reading class. Coming up in 30 minutes, we'll do some listening practice, listening 1 and 2 from some of our older exams. We don't have our new exams recorded yet, but we're working on them. So for those students who have done the listening, it's just a bit of review. It's always good to practice. And for those who haven't, it'll be a nice, fresh new material. Again, of course, you can check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com, where we have lots of general IELTS reading materials for the general IELTS exam. So make sure to visit us there. Hopefully, I will see all of you in 30 minutes for some listening. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out for now from Budapest. You're very welcome, Abhishek, Jainil. Good to see all of you in the class. Bye for now. You're welcome, Preeti. Bye-bye.